Delta is planning to use AI to set prices individually tailored to each customer.
Artificial intelligence can find customers' quote pain point and set surveillance-based prices.
You and I might book the same flight and we may be paying different prices.
So apparently Delta wants to use AI and your data to charge you more for your airline seat than the person next to you. And they're not the only ones. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, welcome back to Step by Step, the podcast where now we just talk about the real stuff going on in the world. But today we are talking about how companies are using our data and AI to charge us more for things. And it's a number of different places have been caught already doing this.
The grocery chain Kroger's introduced dynamic pricing model. So what they do is they raise the price on a hot day for like ice cream and water.
They're surge pricing my Celsius.
But what's more despicable is what they do is they place cameras so they will facial recognize you.
What they're all doing is they're all building an infrastructure to you over as hard as possible.
So what really inspired me to make this video was Delta Airlines announcing how they're going to use AI to try and charge you as much as they think that you'll realistically pay by using your data. So just watch this video here.
Delta Airlines could soon leave it to artificial intelligence to determine your next ticket price.
And so imagine a world in which you have the death in the family, you have to go home for a funeral, and they know that through scraping your email that is, announcing when the service is going to be. They know you're in a tight spot, and so you're going to be charged much more because of that.
They use it against you in what people are calling surveillance pricing. I thought airlines actually gave you a deal for this. I thought there was like a bereavement deal. What I think is wild is how Delta is so public about this. It seems like the kind of thing that a company should say behind closed doors, not be celebrating in public. They said it on an investor call.
Commercially, we're optimizing revenue through our partnership with Fetcherr, leveraging AI-enhanced pricing solutions. While we're still in the test phase, results are encouraging.
By encouraging results, what they mean is they're making more money by doing this. They have to share with their shareholders how they're going to make more money in the next year. These calls are public and anyone can listen to them. To me, it's giving the same energy as when the Kellogg CEO went on the news to talk about how they were pushing cereal for dinner on people. Like, maybe don't admit this to the public.
So we're advertising about cereal for dinner. If you think about the cost of cereal for a family versus what they might otherwise do, that's going to be much more affordable.
Here's what people had to say about it on TikTok. So we are purchasing tickets in person in hotels through the phone from a burner phone. Well, I'm cheap as hell, so basically AI will learn I need some bare bones pricing or I won't purchase from them. Isn't this what capitalism is supposed to prevent? Free market driving prices down? This is crazy. And it kind of does open up a conversation about capitalism and free markets in a world with AI and how AI can kind of meddle with that. Is it really a free market if companies have all our data and AI algorithms to see the most amount we'll possibly pay? So the company behind the algorithm that Delta and a bunch of airlines are using is called Fetcherr, and airlines are on the website saying how it's making them so much more money already. They're an Israeli-based company and they raised $90 million to create this AI model, which, can we just take a second for that? If it costs them $90 million to create and run this model, the airlines are gonna have to pay for that, which in turn they will just pass the pricing on to us. Like, they aren't paying millions of dollars to save customers money. I would imagine the airlines are probably gonna have to pay millions of dollars for this AI tool? Is this even going to make them more money than that? What is a little sus is that Delta and Fetcherr say differing things about how they use our data. Delta got a lot of flack for this. So they said, we're only using public data, we're not using private customer data, but that's not really what Fetcherr said. Our models are based on public data and our customer private data. All are stored in a public cloud available for each of our customers, which makes it sound like there's a profile for each customer, doesn't it? And they are using our private data, it sounds like, even though Delta said they weren't. I don't really believe Delta personally. I mean, no one really knows exactly what data they're using, but TikTok knows us so well that lawmakers think that they could be using your browsing history, your location, your social media activity, biometric data, and financial status. So you might think, okay, well, I'm just not gonna fly Delta then. And that's where things get interesting, because this company, Fetcherr, is trying to work with a number of different airlines on some kind of multiple carrier offer. So right now, Fetcherr apparently already does business with WestJet, Viva Aerobus, Virgin Atlantic, Azul Airlines. And one thing they want to do with the money that they raised, this is what they said: the proceeds will be put towards developing a new AI-powered offer engine to bundle and price multiple carrier services together. Every airline is using Fetcherr and they all have your data. They would all decide on some ridiculous price for you for a flight. Rather than the airlines competing on price, they would all have that same customer profile on you. If they're all using Fetcherr, they could all decide to set it to a higher price for an individual person. This definitely does mess with the free market economics of it all, because it's not really going off of supply and demand of people. The traditional pricing of airlines, it kind of sucks for the holidays, but it makes sense that they're going to charge more for Christmas because there is more demand, and that's how capitalism works. But with this, they'd be charging more even if there isn't really more demand, just if they know that you really need it. And then the person next to you might be charged half as much.
So this is my plea to the Delta AI bot. I don't want to pay anything. $0. The closer to zero, the better. When my name pops up, make sure you lower the price.
A lot of people are saying, okay, just book through an incognito browser. But some people have brought up the point that these airlines, once you put in your date of birth, they already have all your flight history.
You do not need a frequent flyer account for these airlines to build a profile on you. Every airline ticket that you have ever purchased has your name and date of birth on it, which is more than enough for the airline to identify, all of the flights that you've taken in the past and group them together to start building your profile.
This is the first time I've heard of this individual, AI set pricing, and I don't love it. I don't love that Fetcherr is saying they want to go into other industries too, but there's a different sort of pricing that involves AI that other companies have tried using. It was when Wendy's decided they were going to do dynamic pricing of their food.
Wendy's set to test surge pricing, so the cost of your burger would change depending on the time of day.
Is a Frosty going to cost more in the evening when everybody wants dessert?
Starting next year, menu prices will fluctuate during the busiest times of day, meaning you could be paying as much as $1 more for that Baconator during the lunch rush.
First of all, this would make it very hard for people who are trying to budget, which is most people who are getting fast food. You want to have a price that you can rely on. Wendy's, after they got some flack for this, they publicly said no, we're not going to use this to raise prices. But then on their investor call, it kind of shows a different story. You can see this screen says upsell capabilities.
Wendy's CEO announcing his company will spend $20 million on high-tech digital menu boards that can update prices in real time.
If they're going to spend $20 million doing this, I don't think that they're going to just do that so they can offer you a deal. No, it's going to be so they can make more money, not less. I think this also brings up the point that companies are kind of getting lazy. Rather than in a free market, capitalism, everybody says it breeds innovation, it makes companies more efficient, the competition makes prices lower. They're not innovating. Rather than Wendy's coming up with this great new product to bring people in, they're presenting a pricing strategy. It's kind of lazy when you think about it. Perhaps they could even work on their supply chain and find a way to cut costs. This feels like using AI and using technology just to squeeze more money out of people. And Wendy's ultimately decided not to do this because they got a lot of pushback. But a TikTok that I saw brings up that other companies have already been doing it, like Dave & Buster's.
Everybody's getting upset about Wendy's using surge pricing, but why are you guys not upset about all the other restaurants that already do this? Sauce sells software that helps restaurants do dynamic pricing. Some of these restaurants include Tony Roma's, Rachel's Kitchen, and Padilla's.
It's really these big chain companies that see the benefit of streamlining these processes, squeezing a little more money out of people. The way around it, if you don't want to participate, is go to a local restaurant. Pretty much as simple as that. So the Wendy's example is kind of a funny one and just sort of strange, but at least you can just not go to Wendy's. An even crazier example is landlords using algorithms and basically AI to price gouge renters. And we will be getting into that topic, but first I want to thank the sponsors of this episode. I want to thank Copilot Money for sponsoring this episode. Copilot Money is an app that helps you track your everyday spending, your investments, set budgets for things that matter to you, and help you meet your savings goals. They give you a really clear overview of every transaction across all your accounts that you connect to it, all in one dashboard, so it's easy to see where you're at financially. They also have customizable categories, so you can have a more personalized approach to your finances. I think an important feature is the budgeting and real-time spending alerts. These are great to keep you on track without scolding you or making you feel guilty. They also have a new savings goal feature, so you can set any goal like a vacation, a wedding, a house down payment, and watch your progress grow. Copilot is available on your computer or your phone, so they have an iOS app, but you can also log in on your computer, because I know like me, I kind of like managing my finances on my computer. It's just a little bit easier, but I like seeing them and tracking them on an app too. Copilot is privacy first and ad free. They don't sell your data. With other apps, sometimes that's how they make their money, but if you want to keep your data private, Copilot is a good option. Instead, they charge a $95 annual fee, so that's $13 a month. You can get started today with it by going to copilot.money, and you can get a 2-month free trial with the code Shelby2. Again, that's a 2-month free trial. The code is Shelby2, and you can go to copilot.money. All right, back into the episode. I also want to thank Vuori for sponsoring this episode, which is so exciting because I've been a fan of Vuori for a while. I'm always wearing their tennis stuff. I have one of their tennis dresses that I love. Vuori right now has this dream knit jogger that is so comfy and very versatile. You know, you can wear it working out, but you can also wear it just running errands. In general, I feel like that's true of a lot of Vuori's stuff. You could wear it working out, but you can wear it just living your life, which is awesome, and it's cute. The performance jogger has a lightweight and relaxed fit, but it is also moisture wicking, so if you want to wear it while working out, it is still good for that. So Vuori is actually offering 20% off your first purchase to my listeners. You can go to vuori.com/Shelby. That is vuori.com/Shelby to get that 20% off. Not only do you get 20% off your first purchase, but you can also get free shipping on any US orders over $75 and free returns. Exclusions apply. You can visit the website for full terms and conditions. All right, now let's talk about how landlords are using AI to drive up rent prices. So this is something that was reported about a year ago, and I feel like not enough people were talking about it, but a bunch of landlords were found to use this software to basically collude on prices.
A scheme to keep rent prices high and competition low. That's what Colorado's Attorney General says 6 of the nation's largest landlord companies have been doing to people in our state and across the U.S.
What happened in this situation is someone in Washington, D.C. discovered it, that over 50,000 apartments were using this software to price fix. And it is even worse than I thought. So this company, RealPage, they made a software called YieldStar that they said basically just recommended a pricing strategy. You know, recommending pricing strategies is something that Airbnb does, and usually it's a race to the bottom. But in this situation, it was a complete opposite. Just listen to what this person said who got access to it. Specifically, every morning, RealPage provides participating lessors with recommended price levels. If lessors wish to diverge from the approved pricing, they must submit reasoning for doing so and await approval. But RealPage emphasizes the need for discipline among participating lessors and urges them that for its coordinated algorithmic pricing to be most successful in increasing rents, participating lessors must adopt RealPage's pricing at least 80% of the time. It's hard to imagine a clearer, more blatant description of cartel price fixing. So it's not like they're just saying, hey, this is the recommended pricing if you want to do it. They're saying, hey, this is the recommended pricing. If you don't want to do it, we have to approve of you or we're going to kick you off the platform. And by the way, you should really hold tight because then we can increase rents for everyone in the area.
Old-fashioned price fixing using new technology.
We allege, in effect, a housing cartel.
So they really did cross the line from, price recommendation to more of colluding on price. They said our tool ensures that landlords are driving every possible opportunity to increase price, even in the most downward trending or unexpected conditions. That's kind of unbelievable. And that's the opposite of what happens in a free market. If there is a downward trend in demand, then the prices would go down. I've heard people call this implicit collusion because each of these property managers can hide behind the algorithm and just say they were doing what it recommended. But what the algorithm was doing was price fixing. They're finding a way with their algorithm to, even in a downward trend, increase prices, which is crazy. It's estimated that renters ended up paying between 5 and 7% more in rent because of this, which honestly doesn't sound like a lot, but if you compound that over time, it ends up being more. Because if you're charged 5% more the next year and they raise the price each year, eventually you're getting charged like 20% more than what you would have had this never happened. It compounds. So one of the companies settled with a $1 million fine. They did not admit to guilt, and who knows who's even gonna get that money. Is it really gonna go to the people who paid more in rent? The companies that were found using this are big names that have buildings all over the country. One of them being Greystar. Like, I've toured Greystar buildings before. I think I've lived in one before even. What we're seeing with this landlord example is just an interference with the actual free market and how AI and using our private data can potentially do that. If anything, with all these new buildings, we would usually see them undercutting each other in price. As more developers build, the price would be the same or lower, but that's not what we're seeing. I've noticed in Los Angeles, there's a ton of new construction apartments. I've looked at these apartments, record high rents. The rent in the area typically would be what, like $30,000 to $3,500 a month for a 1-bedroom. And these completely empty buildings that are opening at the same time have the nerve to charge like $4,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. Is there really the demand for that? Or are the buildings kind of coming together on setting that price? If you go on a Greystar managed property, it seems like they are still using RealPage.
Do you notice anything bizarre about these rental prices? That's right, they're not round numbers. This rent is not $5,200, it's $5,219. They were all posted by landlords who have used a company called RealPage to set their rents.
Despite there being a lawsuit against RealPage, it does seem like they're still active. The city of Berkeley tried to ban landlords from using RealPage, but then RealPage sued the city. And the city had a $27 million budget deficit, so they chose not to fight the lawsuit, and it seems like RealPage is just doing the same thing. So this landlord example, it's an ongoing development. The way to really avoid it for yourself is get a mom and pop landlord. I've had both. Right now I have a big corporate landlord who probably uses RealPage, but I have had in the past just a one-off mom and pop landlord. They like never raise the rent on you. I lived somewhere for like 4 years. They never raised the rent. They were good about fixing stuff. I even had a landlady when I lived at that condo in Seattle who offered me lower rent because she didn't want me to move out. She offered $500 less a month because she noticed that the real estate market was softening. With the mom and pop landlords, they don't really want to deal with the hassle of getting a new tenant, so they're more likely to just let you stay at the same rate, and they're not paying to use these softwares that give the pricing data, so they're usually not charging as much either. They're just out of that whole system. They might not have all the brand new amenities, but you're probably gonna get a better price, especially if you just walk a neighborhood and call a phone number. That's when you're gonna get the best price. At least they're not using like the personal AI algorithm the way that airlines are. Can you imagine if you were charged more than your neighbor because, you know, they get access to how much money you make with your credit score? If they just charge you more based on that, that'd be messed up. So at least they're not doing that. But I think this whole thing, it's not ethical because it's keeping rents artificially high. These landlords aren't having to compete. One other example of companies using your data to set prices, Uber and Lyft. A lot of people have been onto them for a while about this, so there's no formal lawsuit here, but people have started to notice that you can be charged a different amount based on what type of phone you have. People have noticed that if you have an iPhone, you might get charged more for an Uber because it's assumed that you have more disposable income.
Uber has been accused of charging people more if their phone battery is low. A study by the Belgian newspaper Dernier Air thinks so. It reported that when two identical requests were made to go to and from the same location, Uber charged 6% more for the journey that was made on a smartphone with only 12% battery remaining. In 2016, Uber's former head of economic research, Keith Chen, said in an interview with NPR that the company had found that people with lower battery levels were more willing to pay for surge pricing.
Although Uber denies all of this and there's no way to really know for sure, a lot of people just don't believe them.
A few months ago, a Belgian newspaper found out that Uber is charging you more when you have a low battery. The crazy part isn't that they're doing this, it's that they got caught. The truth is, all these big tech companies have teams of people to figure out ways to extract more money out of you without you noticing.
This guy showed that Uber was charging him different amounts on his iPhone versus on an Android, something that, again, Uber denies, but many people think it's still happening. What do you guys think? Some people have noticed they might be using even more data than that though. Listen to what one Reddit user said. This user was charged more because they noticed a pattern of where they were traveling to. They said if the destination is somewhere you travel often via Uber, they do this, meaning charge more. I used to Uber to school every morning, watch the price rise higher and higher, eventually to $78 for a 2-mile trip. That must be like New York City, because what? So instead of setting my destination to school, I set it to the address across the street, $10 ride. It is insanity. Try the address next door and I guarantee it'll cost almost nothing. And some people even noticed that if you're staying at a nicer hotel in Las Vegas, for example, they got charged more for that. Imagine they're like, oh, you're staying at the Venetian plus $20. A lot of people forget taxis are cheaper nowadays. I've seen a lot of this on TikTok. People go to LAX and they realize, wait, I can just take a taxi.
I live 12 minutes from LAX airport and it was gonna cost me $65 to take an Uber. But there's a beautiful long line of taxis already waiting for you at the LAXIC pickup lot. And it is always half the price of whatever Lyft or Uber is gonna be.
That's the beauty of the free market with competition. We still got taxis in the game competing for their share of the market. Not super successfully, but something to keep in mind, especially at airports. One user noticed that they were charged a different amount than their fiance's phone for the same ride. At one point they were charged $13 and for the same ride, $47 to the same place. Who knows why, but they could be making that decision based on some data they have about them. Even if they're not now, this is something that I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out, how they can use your data with some kind of AI-based algorithm to charge you a bit more, but not too much more that you won't accept it. But a little bit more. Just squeeze a little bit more out of you. You guys know I'm team Waymo anyway, but you know, Waymo's owned by Google and they have probably the most information on us of anyone. So I at least like that Uber and Lyft are still in the game. I like that they're still there. Imagine if it was only Waymo. Waymo would probably start charging even more. Right now they're losing money. Eventually they're gonna charge more, I'm sure. So all these examples, they feel kind of unfair, kind of like ways that companies can come together and use AI and your data against you, essentially. I'm not saying AI is totally evil. I mean, it's very helpful. I love ChatGPT and it's made my life easier in a lot of ways. And you know, not all AI things are evil like that, but you know, who really knows what they're doing with our data? ChatGPT, it knows so much about a lot of us. Now they have more data than ever. Could they go and sell that to airlines or landlords and come up with some algorithm on how to just squeeze a little more money out of us? Hopefully not. I don't like the idea of this individual customer profile pricing from airlines. There's already lawmakers trying to keep airlines from doing this. It does help to be aware of this and where you are spending your money. And if people are complaining, it actually does make a difference. Like Wendy's decided not to go through with that weird pricing strategy because enough people are like, what? No. So what do you guys think? Have you noticed any other companies try and use AI to squeeze a little more money out of you? I still like AI in general, but I think the bigger concern here is how companies use our data. The customer profiles these companies must have on us has got to be concerning at this point. So it's something interesting that's happening in this new evolving world with AI. But thankfully, you know, the actual price fixing is illegal. So when companies do that, they will get hit with a fine like the landlords are. But you know, it doesn't stop them from trying. All right, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos about current events and like crazy things that are happening in the world. If you prefer to listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'll have that link down below. Don't forget to subscribe on there and you know, comment down below your experience and what you've noticed with this. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.